I'm Itai. Hold on, let's see. Almost ready, hold on. Okay, and we're gonna talk today about bridging the wallet experience, pushing forward user experience in web3, which we thought is the catchiest title we can give this talk. But the idea and what we'll talk about is essentially first dynamic in 60 seconds, who we are, why we're here. We'll try to make it as least amount of salesy as possible, just so that you guys have context as to why we're talking, although everyone should use dynamic. We'll then actually talk about the bridge project and what we try to build. We'll go through kind of the different components for it, the authentication in kind of the different parts. We'll talk about some of the challenges and learnings we had as a result of working together with the Starknet team on this. And then we'll kind of talk a little bit more about the vision for kind of how authentication should work, how kind of multi-chain authentication should work in general. At the end of it, by the way, I'll take questions, so if you have anything, please let me know. But with that, let's start. So dynamic in 60 seconds. So who here heard about the company Dynamic? Great. Love it. The Dynamic employee heard about Dynamic. But besides that, what Dynamic is, we're a Web3 authentication company. So the way to think about us is a little bit like an Auth0, if folks know that company, but for Web3. So if you use a service today where you click login, you see wallets, you see embedded wallets like email login, social login, that's a place where Dynamic can fit. We're backed by A16Z. We've been around for a year and a half. Some of our customers include Animoca brands and Token Proof and Flipside Crypto and Alongside and Doodles and stuff like that. But really what we do is we put together this module on steroids. Now, I'll show a quick video of what Dynamic looks like, and then we'll actually dive into what we actually did. So just for context, Dynamic, I don't know if you guys can see it well, but it's a super dynamic, no pun intended, or a little bit of pun intended, module that lets you kind of control authentication, control login, just do wallet login, do wallet and email, allow multi-wallet linking, all that type of stuff we kind of do for customers. You can change UI, you can pretty much control anything on the interface, and that's pretty much what we do. Now with that context, what we did and what this talk is about is the Starknet Bridge project. And the idea was to take this thing, which is Starknet, the Starknet Bridge, and revamp how you authenticate to it, and revamp the wallet experience flow. Who has ever used this bridge? Great, okay, great. So everyone should use this bridge, shameless plug, you should go, you should try it out. But the idea was very simple. The idea was to take that connect wallet button and create kind of this unified and easy to use cross-chain login flow for it. Or in other words, just make it magical, right? So take this button that's usually really hard, where you jump between different wallets, where you jump between different providers, and just make it work. Now what we'll do is we'll show a quick video of how it works with Dynamic, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the future plans and some things that we're building next. But the idea is the following. So quick demo, you go, you click connect, and you kind of have a walkthrough flow that lets you kind of connect wallets across Ethereum and Starkware. You can pretty much search for any wallet. You can connect any wallet. Let me connect to this one. I'll continue with next. I connected in my MetaMask. I now jump to Starkware. I click on OriginX. I connect, and I am pretty much done. So the idea is there's a lot of things that happen beneath the surface. I have kind of this presentation of all the wallets I'm connected. ENS gets pulled in. You'll see this in a second. So all identity-related stuff get pulled in, and it kind of just works, right? Now, it's not very crazy wow, and that's actually the core idea here. The core idea is that a lot of the complexity goes beneath the surface, and you'll see this over the next couple months. Even more of the complexity is going to disappear kind of behind under the surface. But the idea, and just before we dive into some of the key learnings, some of the interesting stuff, the idea over the next couple months is to extend on this. So Argent just launched a web wallet and a mobile wallet. The idea is to implement those. There's a lot of really interesting things with how you think about privacy. So how do you do connect of multiple wallets to the same account while keeping that information away from centralized servers? So you'll see us do a lot of work around kind of multi-wallet connection that you keep on local storage as a source of truth, but also you keep in DIDs and verifiable credentials for the user without a centralized server having control. We're also going to work a lot on support for EAP 6963, which is the way in which injected wallets on EVM kind of work together and kind of not break each other. And we'll do more privacy preserving stuff like analytics in a way that doesn't reveal any user identities. But with that, let's actually talk about key learnings. So some of the key learnings on working with this project, and this project took kind of 2-3 months to actually do, some of the key learnings were the following, which is when you work across 2 ecosystems and each one moves extremely quickly, you gotta plan it in a way that doesn't break things every day. And what that means is the following. Over the last 2 months, Starknet kept updating its version. Wallet Connect moved to Wallet Connect v2. Right? EAP 6963 was introduced for multi-wallet injected linking. About 5 or 6 popular injected wallets launched that broke each other. So MetaMask, I don't know if anyone has ever played with EVM, but the way EVM injected wallets work is that MetaMask kind of injects itself, and then everyone else pretends to be MetaMask in the same kind of window. So everyone kind of pretends to be window.ethereum, pretends to be MetaMask in order to get distribution. So lots of wallets breaking each other. And what we've learned is that as you build in a system that's really fast moving, you have to build these tests and an entire testing suite in order to make sure that the thing you implement today doesn't break the thing that was implemented yesterday. Just as an example, again, over the last 4 months, Coinbase redid their entire SDK for how they do wallet connections. MetaMask redid their entire SDK and is moving away from Wallet Connect and adding a mobile SDK as the default desktop to mobile interaction, right? ArgentX launched a mobile kind of browser. Coinbase does interaction with its own browser. So those set of complex interactions is really where we had to spend a lot of our time. And what you see is really 2 things. The first one is that it's kind of like working with 100 startups that break each other's things every day and kind of controlling for things in that environment. But the second, it's really interesting thing is all of these wallets are actually really open to feedback. And so what we found is that when working with these wallets across EVM and across Starknet, all wallet providers are actually open to changing things over time to support their customer base. So this really interesting dynamic. So if you ever build in that environment, know that the wallet teams are actually really open to working with folks. The next set of things that was a challenge is how do you do all of this in a privacy preserving manner, right? And one of the really interesting things is that you essentially want to do something that maintains state, right? You maintain an EVM wallet and you maintain a Starknet wallet, and you want to maintain those across sessions, but you want to do it in a way where only you, the user, knows about the association between those 2 wallets, right? And that's a challenge that we face, which is how you do it in a way that maintains state. And again, we'll talk about this, but what you'll see is a lot of work around DIDs and verifiable credentials to kind of connect those types of things. And the last thing I'll say is that if you take nothing else away from this discussion, know that event listeners are fun. And what I mean by that is that every wallet and every chain implements listeners in a completely different way, which is this hilarious kind of lack of standard that exists that you as developers kind of have to track, right? And that's one thing you'll see over the next, again, 6 to 12 months is hopefully more standardization around that type of stuff. Now with that, let's talk about the long-term vision. We'll talk about kind of 2 things here. First, we'll talk about where we see the market going, and then where we see interactions as a result of that. The first thing is that in 5 to 10 years, we kind of think that everything becomes a wallet, right? And what that means is that if you open your phone and look at your 10 apps on your phone that are there by default, you're going to have 10 wallets that are embedded on those apps. And they're going to be multi-chain wallets. So they're going to work with Starknet, they're going to work with EVM, they're going to work with Solana, etc. And if that's the case, the way we interact with sites is going to be really different, right? In that part of the world, in that vision, you kind of want to create this experience that's a one-click experience for interaction. And so what we'll see over the next couple months is you'll see the UI that we presented, right, that has like 8 clicks, condensed first into 3 clicks, and then into 1 click, right? And the idea is, again, to move away from everything we presented. So if we were to do the same presentation in a year, hopefully I show a demo that has 2 clicks. And if we were to do this presentation in 3 years, hopefully I show a demo that has 0 clicks, right? And that's really the goal of this. The idea is that in the short term, as wallets move to be very, very multi-chain, you have a single click to enable multiple chains at once. By the way, if anyone's interested in learning more about this, you can actually check out the Phantom team is doing this with Solana and EVM. So the Phantom team has a proof of concept out that lets you connect with a single click to both Solana and EVM in a single interaction. And what I think we'll start seeing is from multi-chain wallets like Coinbase and Argent and again, Phantom, etc., is you'll see a single click interaction to connect across all chains. And what will happen then is you'll move from that 7-step process to a get started, choose a wallet, ignore the chain, just choose a wallet, and kind of have it work. Right? But then in the long term, all of this really goes away. The idea is in the long term, you actually just click get started, it should detect your wallet, and you should be done. Right? And the idea is that over the long 6 to 12 or 18 months, we'll get lower and lower of these kind of interactions at all, and that's where we're spending our time, is how do you make it so everything kind of magically happens beneath the surface. So that's really the goal. The goal is to essentially continue iterating on this project, and Starknet Bridge is an example, but it's really around kind of a project to abstract away the complexity of chains and make it so that with a single click you can just interact and it'll kind of just work. And that's where we're going to spend our time. And again, please check back on the Starknet Bridge over the next 6, 12, and 18 months, and you'll see not more UI but less UI, and kind of see it kind of completely abstracted to the background. And with that, shameless plug, if you want to learn more about Dynamic, scan this QR code. Again, the goal is not to present about Dynamic, but I wouldn't be a founder if I don't shamelessly promote the startup while I'm here. And with that, any questions? Yes?
So you mentioned the one-click interaction. Do you know the technical details of
Yeah, so I can share more with the demo environment afterwards. So come find me, and I'll send you a code sandbox that I think they have live. But the way on the short-term UX, the way Phantom does this is they essentially expose an API that they built that you as kind of the developer can interact with through Ethers or through web3.js, Ethers web3.js or Veeam, that lets you kind of call all chains at once. And they introduce 2 APIs. They introduce a connect API, but then a sign API. So essentially what it does is that it lets you, right, connection doesn't actually prove ownership. And so they introduced a second API, which is just a straight to sign, where they sign a message at the same time on Solana and on Polygon and on Ethereum, or actually Polygon and Ethereum, they do a single message. They combine that into a single package and they return that to you. And so there are a lot, it's really interesting because it also moves away from signing with Ethereum, which is kind of the first standard, to just sign in with your wallet that works in the same way across all of these. And I hope that the Starknet ecosystem actually follows very quickly on that as well. Does that answer your question? Yeah. But I can send you a code sandbox afterward. More questions? Okay, with that, thank you so much. Much appreciated. Scan the QR code, dynamic.xyz. Thank you.